Welcome everyone, I'm Archit Seshadri. Thanks for watching WION World is One News. Let's take a look at the top stories making headlines around the world. A setback to auto giant Tata Motors. The Indian Supreme Court has now ordered the return of 1,000 acres of land acquired from farmers in West Bengal back in 2006 for the Tata Nano factory. Trouble for Robert Vadra. The investigation led by Justice Dhingra, examining land allotted to Vadra's company in Haryana, has accused him of colluding with former Chief Minister Bhupinder Singh Hooda for land deals. In a heartwarming gesture, Indian wrestler Yogeshwar Dutt declines the upgrade of his London Games bronze medal to silver and asks for the sentiments of the family of disgraced silver medalist Bresnik to be respected. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry meets India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Delhi, addressing students at the IIT Delhi campus. Kerry says that the U.S. and India are strategic partners against the global fight for terrorism. India puts up pressure to Pakistani national broadcaster. All India Radio plans special programming for Balochistan and the Balochi language. And the criminal court in the Maldives has issued an arrest warrant for exiled opposition leaders, including former President Mohammed Nasheed, over an investigation into alleged misuse of state funds during his presidency. Welcome everyone. Those stories in just a moment, but we first start in India. In a major setback for auto giant Tata Motors, the Supreme Court of India has squashed the 1,000-acre land allotted in 2006. The former CPI-led state government allotted the land to the Tatas for setting up a car plant. The land allotted in the town of Singur was to be used to manufacture the company's Nano brand of cars. The apex court ordered West Bengal government to return farmers their land, declaring entire acquisition process illegal. Tata Motors was forced to move out of Singur after massive protests by opposition parties. Justice Dhingra panel submitted its report on the cases of alleged land irregularity by former Haryana Chief Minister Bhupinder Singh Hooda. Sources to WION confirmed that 182 strong-page reports have now confirmed that the rules were flouted to favor Congress President Sonia Gandhi's son-in-law, Robert Vadra's company, Skylight. The Dhingra panel report will be examined by the Haryana government for further action. Justice Dhingra, speaking to the press, said that his 182-page report is thorough and has named all persons responsible for the alleged land scam. Sources close to WION confirmed that Dhingra reports mentioned that Haryana Chief Minister's office was in the know of the land deal, which took place during the tenure of Bhupinder Singh Hooda's government. Moving on now to U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who visited IIT, or the Indian Institute of Technology's campus in New Delhi, India's premier engineering college. He was there to interact with students. The discussion ranged from terrorism in India's neighborhood to the disputed South China Sea. It also talked about environmental issues and the need to shift towards clean energy. He also called upon Pakistan to act against terrorist groups, saying that more needs to be done to crack down on terror camps inside the country. He stressed that Pakistan must push harder against the groups engaged with extremists.
It is clear that Pakistan has work to do in order to push harder against its indigenous groups that are engaged in extremist terrorist activities. And they must work with us, and we've made this very clear, to help clear the sanctuaries of bad actors who are affecting not only the relationship between Pakistan and India, but also our ability to achieve peace and stability in Afghanistan.
Well, the weather in India's national capital of Delhi continues to wreak havoc with the schedule of U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. He's still in Delhi now for an official visit. On Wednesday morning, he found himself in a rather helpless situation. Like millions of other people in the city, heavy rain since the morning had brought down the metropolis to a grinding halt. The U.S. Secretary of State had to cancel his planned visit to the Jama Masjid in the Old City, as well as his visit to the Gauri Shankar Temple. He addressed students and faculty at IIT in Delhi, but Kerry couldn't resist making light of the situation. Let's listen in.
I deserve an award for being able to get here today. I don't know if you came in boats or amphibious vehicles of some kind, but I salute you for being here. Thank you very, very much for making the effort.
Quite an interesting situation indeed. Hopefully nobody came by boats. Well, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry called on Prime Minister Modi here on Wednesday, this concluding his three-day visit to India. Kerry met Modi at 7 Racecourse Road on Wednesday afternoon. According to senior State Department officials, Kerry might also encourage India to engage in talks with Pakistan during the discussions. He arrived in New Delhi on Monday night for the annual U.S.-India Strategic and Commercial Dialogue. This after he took a one-day stopover in Bangladesh, where he discussed the increase in militant attacks. Moving on to other stories now out of India, the Indian state of Maharashtra has decided now to amend its parole and furlough rules. Now, as per the new rules, anyone convicted on charges of rape and murder or any section of narcotics will not be eligible for regular parole. Those who are convicted of kidnapping, too, will be ineligible. The changes were notified last Friday after the changes received a nod from the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Devendra Fadnavis. The new rules come after a rape convict jumped his parole. Moving now to Kashmir, one civilian was killed and 4 others were hurt in fresh clashes in North Kashmir's Baramulla district. The curfew was lifted there from an entire valley on Wednesday. The fresh clashes happened even as the authorities lifted curfew from all areas of Kashmir after 53 days. Shops and schools remained closed because of a protest strike called by separatists challenging India's sovereignty of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. The curfew is a series of communications and blackouts and a tightening crackdown have all failed to stop some of the largest protests there against the Indian government in recent years. Meanwhile, Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti urged some of the young people there to stop from protesting. An all-party delegation led by the Interior Minister Rajnath Singh will visit the valley on the 4th of September. They'll hold talks with all stakeholders in the region. Moving on now, All India Radio has sent a proposal to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting that it intends to start radio programming in the Baloch language. The demand for free Balochistan goes back to 1948 when the Pakistani army annexed the state of Kalat. India's stand post-Bangladesh had remained ambivalent on the issue of the Baloch cause, but India's Prime Minister Modi is in the wake of the Kashmir agitation says the Baloch issue is his top priority. Many experts see this as India's step to support Balochistan and counter Pakistani's propaganda on Kashmir. Staying in Pakistan, the country will acquire at least 8 modified submarines from neighboring China. The agreement says to be priced at nearly $5 billion is being termed as the biggest arms export deal for China. The first 4 submarines are expected to be delivered by the end of 2023. The remaining 4 will be assembled in Karachi by 2028. Reports say China is expected to extend a long-term loan to Pakistan at low interest rates. To complete all of this cost of the project, China and Pakistan will make a deal. Now moving on to Myanmar, hundreds of representatives of Myanmar's ethnic tribes have gathered in the country's capital for peace talks with the government. This is all aimed at ending decades of separatist insurgencies that have claimed thousands of innocent lives. Aung San Suu Kyi, UN Chief Ban Ki-moon, and General La Ying, the head of Myanmar's armed forces, are all scheduled to give speeches at the opening of the talks. to find out the fate of the country's various ethnic minorities. Now, they make up about 40% of the population. Meanwhile, in Myanmar, a day ahead of the peace talks there, the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon raised the plight of Rohingya Muslims. The UN chief said that the minority group needs and deserves the right to self-identify and citizenship. Myanmar's de facto leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, has made the peace process a priority for her administration. She faces sky-high expectations at both home and abroad.
Has assured me of the commitment to address the roots of the program. I convey the concern of the international community about the tens of thousands of people who have been living in very poor conditions in IDP camps for over 4 years.
Moving on now to the Maldives, authorities there are looking to arrest former President Mohammed Nasheed. Nasheed is accused of evading the country and faces a 13-year jail sentence for terrorism. Nasheed was granted political asylum in Britain back in May. He was removed from office in 2012, 4 years after he was elected as president. Controversial Islamic preacher Zakir Naik may soon be booked under India's stringent anti-terror law. The legal opinion sought by India's Home Ministry suggests that there is a conscious intention on Naik's part towards spreading enmity among religious groups. It also suggests that cases should be registered against Naik's NGO IRF, which is allegedly funding radical activities. Naik came under the scanner of security agencies after a Bangladeshi newspaper reported that one of the assailants of the Dhaka terror attack last month was influenced by his teachings. Naik is banned in the UK and Canada, as well as in Malaysia, for his hate speech. The Islamic State group says that its leader and spokesperson, Abu Muhammad al-Adnani, is now dead. The group's news agency reported that al-Adnani died in the Syrian province of Aleppo, where he was monitoring military operations. He's said to have masterminded the European terror attacks as well as other attacks around the world. The U.S. and the United Nations has designated him as a global terrorist. In its report, the group's news agency celebrated what it called al-Adnani's, quote, long voyage crowned by sacrifice, end quote. There are no confirmed reports on how the 39-year-old died. He was born in the northern Syrian town of Baloch back in 1977. Moving now to Europe, Italy held a state funeral on Tuesday for last week's devastating earthquake. Many of those victims, unfortunately, were just buried under the rubble because it happened early in the morning. The funeral was in the central town of Amatrice. So far, the death toll stands at 292 from that 6.2 quake. Italy's government is allocating about $60 million to help the survivors. Italy's prosecution department will monitor the funds just in case there's any kind of corruption allegations. Switching now to yet another man-made disaster. At least 11 people were killed when Typhoon Lion Rock brought heavy rains and strong winds to northern Japan on Wednesday. This happened in Iwate Prefecture. Local media reported 11 deaths, including 9 people at an elderly home. Their bodies were found amongst the mud and rubble after a heavy flood. Japan's self-defense force is helping with search and rescue operations. On Tuesday, Japan's meteorological agency announced that Typhoon Lion Rock was expected to make landfall in the northeast Tohoku region with sustained winds of about 120 kilometers an hour. More than 100 flights were canceled and evacuations were issued for thousands of people in northern Japan. Moving on now to the European Union's antitrust regulators. They've come down hard now on Apple to pay up to $15 billion in taxes plus interest to the Irish government. Analysts say that this decision will prompt companies in the U.S. to be more cautious about investing in the EU. The senior managing director at BDA Partners in New York says it appeared that the EU was trying to flex its own muscles as a cohesive bloc after Brexit. He added that Apple just can't avoid paying the penalty due to huge political pressure. The company's earnings reached $18 billion last year. Now, that's the biggest ever reported by a corporation. The $15 billion penalty, or almost 15, represents about 6% of the firm's cash pile.
I think the whole EU is trying to flex its muscles in one block, and I think Brexit makes a difference. I think now the EU is trying very, very hard to be seen to be defending its citizens and making sure that big multinationals pay their fair share of taxes. I think it's a calculated decision by the EU that big tech companies are still going to want to do business in Europe. Having said that, if you have the choice of making an investment decision, putting down an R&D facility in Asia or the US or Europe, you might choose to do it somewhere else other than the EU from now on.
Well, now here's a story about sportsmanship. Let's listen into this one. In a heartwarming gesture, Indian wrestler Yogeshwar Dutt has declined, that's right, declined the upgrade of his London Games medal. He had a bronze here. He was about to be upgraded to silver, but he said, no thank you. He asked for the sentiments of the family of the silver medalist Bresnik to be respected. Bresnik unfortunately died in an accident. Dutt took to Twitter, and the wrestler asked people to respect the sentiments of the family. And, he said that he's okay with his award. He is a four-time world champion. The Russian, of course, who unfortunately died a year after the Olympic Games. He was unfortunately tested positive from his 2012 sample for doping allegations. Now, according to the rules there, they can carry that out for 10 years. That's how long those doping samples are kept. So normal procedures, but what a wonderful and heartwarming gesture that Yogeshwar Dutt did, keeping his bronze. We wish him the very best. Well, now staying in sports, England creating history in cricket. They made the history in the third one-day international against Pakistan on Tuesday. England's batsmen hit a staggering 444-run total. That is the highest ever in ODI cricket. That huge total meant the Pakistan team lost by about 169, with England clinching a lead 3-0 in the five-match series. Opener Alex Hales plundered 171 off 122 balls to go past Robin Smith's record for the highest individual limited over score by an England batsman. Joss Buttler pitched in with the fastest 50 off just 22 deliveries, and here's the good news, it's not all, there's more. Hales and Roots' partnership was also England's third highest in ODI. Of course, ODI is the one-day international. Pakistanis were bowled out for 275 with still 44 balls left to spare. Congratulations to the England team. All right, now we move on to football. Germany's captain Bastian Schweinsteiger is all set up to hang up his spurs. The team is preparing for its friendly match against Finland. Now, this is going to be a match which will be Schweinsteiger's last for the side. The Manchester United midfielder announced his retirement from international football back in July. His last appearance on Wednesday's friendly match will be the 121st for his country. He's played in 3 World Cups, 4 European Championships, and his decision to retire from international football followed a 2-0 defeat to France in the Euro 2016 semifinals. Wishing him the very best.
Natürlich ist es emotional. Ich meine, ich verspüre ich hatte wunderbare Jahre hier. Ich verspüre eine tiefe Dankbarkeit, auch 120 Länderspiele für Deutschland machen haben zu dürfen. Die Teamkameradschaft im Team, die familiäre Atmosphäre beim DFB. Dann hatten wir die wunderschöne WM 2006 und dann die Krönung 2014 und dann durfte ich auch noch Kapitän der Mannschaft sein. Also als kleiner Junge träumt man von sowas und das macht mich stolz, dass ich das erreicht habe und
Well, here's another heartwarming story to bring to you. Have you ever heard of a Roti bank? Probably not, right? Well, every morning, Rajkumar Bhatia and Sudhir Birani, they collect extra rotis or chapatis, they're like naan in India. So what they do is they go and collect them, then they pick them up and they deliver them to those people who are in need of food in New Delhi. Let's see how they do it.
Packed with care, These rotis are not only for the school kids. Today, they will also feed a hungry homeless family. Hunger is one of the biggest challenges India faces. Rajkumar Bhatia and Sudhir Behrani are two friends from Delhi who have made feeding the hungry their personal mission.
एक दिन आज़ादपुर मंडी में जहाँ मैं काम करता हूँ वहाँ एक व्यक्ति आया, उसने मुझसे काम मांगा। मैं उसे काम देने में असमर्थ था, तो मैंने उसे कुछ पैसे देने चाहे। उसने पैसे लेने से मना किया और उसके मुंह से अनायास निकला कि मुझे खिलाना है तो खाना खिला दीजिए, मुझे पैसे नहीं चाहिए। वही शायद रोटी बैंक की शुरुआत थी।
For the Roti Bank, Bhatia and his friends visit schools asking students to get a few extra rotis from home. These are then collected and handed out to the needy. Roti Bank now has 21 centers across Delhi.
यहाँ जब आप छोटे बच्चों को अभी देखेंगे थोड़ी देर के बाद, उनकी बातें सुनेंगे तो आप खुद सुन के हैरान हो जाएंगे कि बच्चे क्या बात सोचते हैं उनके मन में। जो शेयरिंग और केयरिंग की भावना अलका जी ने यहाँ जब स्टार्टिंग की थी, तो वही मन में भावना बैठती जाती है और 10 साल बाद ये बच्चे जब बड़े होंगे तो अपने आसपास किसी को भूखा नहीं रहने देंगे।
According to a United Nations 2015 report, India ranks highest globally with nearly 195 million undernourished people.
We do speak to our children very often. We tell them why it is important to bring an extra food packet for the poor children. And I think over a period of time, they have understood the value of feeding the poor, not only in school by bringing packets, but I've heard from parents, even at home, children want the maid's child to be fed before his own dinner comes on the table.
हमें सिर्फ हमारी क्लास में ये बताया जाता है कि आपकी रोटी उन सब लोगों के पास जा रही है जिनको आखिर उस चीज़ की बहुत ज़रूरत है। हमें उस चीज़ का एहसास नहीं है क्योंकि हमें पहले ही भूख से पहले ही रोटी मिल जाती है। लेकिन जब हमें ये लोग बताते हैं कि जिसको भूख लग रही है और उसको छोटी सी भी चीज़ खाने को मिलेगा तो वो भी बहुत ज़्यादा स्वादिष्ट बन जाती है। तो हमें सिर्फ वो सुनने को ही मिला है, एक्चुअली हमने कभी देखा नहीं है, लेकिन हम obviously महसूस ज़रूर कर सकते हैं।
Last year's Global Hunger Index put India 20th with a serious hunger situation. Among South Asian nations, it is behind only Afghanistan and Pakistan. The government has tried to tackle the situation by putting in place schemes like the midday meal for school kids and Antyodaya Anna Yojana for families living below the poverty line. But the situation shows no real signs of improvement. A lot needs to be done for the hungry in India. Rather than waiting for the government to tackle this massive problem, individuals are now stepping forward to take matters into their own hands. The Roti Bank initiative is not only a definite step towards helping the hungry, but also aids in generating awareness. One day at a time, these wary citizens are bringing in the change. Bureau Report, WION.
And that is our bulletin for right now. What a heartwarming story. Don't forget, you can track all of our stories on our digital, mobile, and social media platforms. Of course, log on to our website, www.weonews.com. I'm Archit Seshadri. Thanks for watching WION. We'll see you soon.